You're now listening to the Tunelectric podcast with Rob Cox. For more, visit tunelectric.com. This is episode 2, where I caught up with a uniquely talented player. He's a guitar composer, producer, and educator who lives and breathes music. His eclectic taste in music has seen him collaborate physically and virtually with a vast array of musicians, from Indian classical virtuosos to the latest names in jazz and rock. At the height of the percussive guitar boom, his book release, Percussive Acoustic Guitar, paved the way for new players and helped to uncover the mysteries of the style. His expertise have also been called upon to write several pieces for the London College of Music's acoustic guitar performance grades. With his charismatic nature both on and off stage, he's built up an impressive catalogue of original music and pays it forward by offering to share his knowledge in workshops and social groups, helping inspire new players. So let's get to the interview. Let's get in the groove. Here's Chris Woods. Thanks very much, Chris, for joining me today. This is a new podcast that I'm starting, and I'm just trying to chat to lots of different types of guitar players from all different genres. And it's great that you've taken the time out to chat to me today. So, Chris Woods, guitarist. Do you want to tell us a little brief history about how you got to where you are today with your guitar playing?
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me, Rob. Really grateful. So, started mid-teens, getting stuck into guitar really, and just exploded very quickly, really, the guitar for me, and just took up an exponential amount of time and kind of messed up school, and ended up just putting time and energy into playing guitar, and got into uni on an audition, doing a BA music course, and just really, that was a really inspirational time at uni, learning about it was a very open-minded music degree, and looking at everything from Indian classical to to jazz, to Western classical, to pop, it was just fantastic and inspirational. And and then I came out of uni and I was just desperate to earn a living making music really, and I ended up falling into sort of guitar teaching, which I'd done for a long time, but also working in events. I ran a festival, and working for a council as an arts manager. And I was always writing instrumentals and solo guitar things from, just before uni really. And I ended up, by a sort of conversation on MySpace, talking to Howard at Logarithm, because I was using a stomp box that a friend had made for me.
Okay.
And I was talking to them about their the sort of crafted stomp boxes, and I ended up using that, really liked it, and then was asked to go and demo for them at Music Messe, and then just all of a sudden, this whole sort of world of solo guitar playing opened up, because I guess I found a niche, if you like, of people going, because when I played instrumental, introspective solo guitar pieces at jam nights, no one cared.
Right, excellent.
So in that situation, it's people. There is a world for this, and
there's a niche for it. Yeah, definitely.
I'm pretty sure at uni or at the end of uni or shortly after, someone had sent me the Andy McKee drifting video, right, which can certainly be attributed to a start of that. But as I've said in lots of interviews before, at that time of seeing that, I wasn't taken by it. It wasn't till much later that I was taken by it, and very much an Andy McKee fan. And he's a he's the god really of solo acoustic playing.
Yeah, he's amazing.
But it started to really take off, I think, after that. And I think at this point of starting a solo career, it was happening at a simultaneous time. I wasn't really taking inspiration from that at that time in a big way anyway, because perhaps it was almost under the radar a bit still.
Right, okay.
Do you know what I mean?
An underground sort of movement, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you've sort of you've finished uni and stuff, and you what was the next sort of thing after uni that popped up? You said you were sort of going into events management and things and things like that.
Yeah. That was an insight into just how the arts world worked and how music interacts with community, I suppose, which is like maintained been a really important thing for me all the way through. But yeah, I think it was that first trip to Music Messa as a demo musician that was the real sort of significant changer into a solo guitar world, because I think that's a really specific thing, you know. It's a very specific sort of genre, if you like, and it wasn't like a genre that I was like particularly interested by in a listening way. It was more that I was interested by playing guitar on my own, you know. It was like a necessity, really. I think all of us who play guitar have written sort of solo instrumentals, basically, haven't we? Even if we don't listen to that, you know, that's because that's the tools we've got. So it's like, you know, I was just creating music with the tools that I had. And you were sort of quite sort of do you have a lot of input in creating the logarithm, the stomp box that you're using to create like the bass drum effects and things in the videos early on? Yeah, so I mean, early on it was very much a product that was there, and then I went and used. Right. And then we Howard created the prologue, and we launched it as a signature. And yeah, definitely in the creation of that, or whilst that was being created, I was putting a lot of my feedback across to Howard of this works particularly well. I think for me, I was always talking a lot about the consistency of sound and making it a smaller space, basically, so that you could just forget what you're doing with your feet, and wherever you hit it, it's going to be exactly the same every time. So that was a big thing that I was pushing forward to Howard, and he had already had this really cool idea of the sort of heel and toe board, of having two very specific sounds, which is so definitely in a sort of using the product and then saying, oh, I'd really like this. I think and
they were sort of able to adapt to your sort of playing style a bit more. And
I think it's in any like company who make instruments and things, they're actually desperate for feedback, really, to make it better, aren't they? Because you're
of course, yeah. And were you?
It's like feedback on your music, isn't it? It's like finding people who will actually give you.
Yeah, sort of fine tune it, and just to have that sort of critical sort of feedback from the people who are using it the most. And was that at a time when your career had sort of took off a bit as a player? Were you already sort of quite well known, and they were sort of excited to have you on board, or was it like the other way around?
No, man. Yeah. Total opposite. So yeah, I think. I think by the time we did the signature prologue, I think that was at a time when I'd started working with Martin guitars at that point, and I was definitely had a career. But when I started working with Howard and Rob at Timbertones, it was pretty much at the same time. It was absolutely from someone who had written a few instrumentals and put them up on MySpace as a sort of a hobby, because I was playing in bands and playing rock and whatever, and that was just for almost my own enjoyment, really.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely they really worked with me without any layer of sort of knownness.
Great, awesome, that's cool. That's really good. Like how you've now got to that sort of stage where you're sort of associated with these brands and things, and you can sort of get the best from the stuff that they make. And I think that's pretty cool that you've sort of that sort of collaboration type thing with the manufacturers and stuff that you can have sort of nowadays, I guess. And
man, totally. I think that first relationship was really formative, obviously in helping me to have a bit of a career, but also in understanding that they are collaborations, like working with Howard at Logarithm or Logjam is in fact the name of the brand, really. Was a collaboration, and everything ever since, be it with Martin or Elixir or G7th, or they're all collaborations. I think it's easy with like endorsements and things to sort of, they're like, can be almost like badges of honor, which are fine. But actually they're, most of the people who are working in like the instrument industry are really interesting musicians, basically, who are really, maybe have an engineering slant or whatever. And they're really, really cool to work with. And it's definitely all about the collaboration rather than the sort of, just cooperation. It's about like doing stuff together.
Yeah. So with this sort of mentality of doing stuff together with, collaborating with other people, you sort of gone on to kind of produce these pieces of music that are written for lots of players with different parts of different levels. And what was the sort of inspiration behind that? Was it just to get more people interested in guitar, or?
Probably a mix of previous experiences, really. Like I was talking about being an arts manager and seeing that sort of role of community and music. And I think that definitely played a part in sort of, I've always seen music as a people thing, not just a sound thing. Also, I think when I started becoming, if you like, the Chris Woods Groove Orchestra, and started working with other musicians and tabla players and double bass players and everyone who I was working with, I went through a process of realization that actually when you work with different musicians in communicating what you want, they can be the best musician in the world, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to play something how you want to. And to get people to play the best, or to communicate the best way possible, and to communicate what you want to get across the best way possible, is to keep it simplistic, so that they're operating in their comfort zone, if you like, even with the super best players. And I think through those lessons, then it's the whole guitar ensemble thing and guitar orchestra thing of getting people to play simplistic parts and stuff, is realizing actually if I write a simple part, someone who's been playing guitar a year can play it just as beautifully as the most pro guitarist that I know. And they do. I'll stand by that, because I think it's really true. And in doing these projects, you realise that actually sometimes they play it better because they're not complacent. They're so in focus and flow of what they're doing. So those projects have kind of come from that. And I just really enjoy that. I really enjoy that challenge of working with different people, different ages, different styles, different abilities, different. It's good. Fun.
Yeah, it sounds. It's a really great thing that you've brought these people together. And I was watching some of the clips and stuff that you that you'd conducting, you know, the orchestras and things. There's children, there's adults, there's, you know, men and women, boys and girls. You know, they're all there taking part, and I don't know. I think that's really special thing to have the ability to actually bring people together and motivate them and to get the best from them and just get them to love the instrument and love music and love what they're doing. And I think that is so important, especially right now. Obviously we're still in this weird scenario of this global you know, pandemic and everything, and I think, you know, it's sort of grossly sort of, you know, not looked at all with, you know, politicians and all that sort of thing, not putting enough emphasis on things like music and arts and things like that to actually make people feel good and to forget about their worries and stuff. And I think what you're doing with things like that and bringing people together, I think that's, you know, that's really sort of commendable that you do that. But yeah, sort of, I just wanted to just touch briefly on your view of that and how important music actually is. Especially in times of like the times we're going through basically at the moment, you know.
Yeah, man, I think it's always hugely important. I don't necessarily let me start again. I think music and art, not necessarily always in a sort of what kind sometimes grossly gets called high art way. What I mean is making stuff together, you know, be that singing a song together, getting together for a jam, or you know, a symphony. I think it's crucial because it's transcendental or mindful. You know, it takes you out of a situation and gives you the ability to view it with a new perspective and see what actually really matters. And I think, well, weirdly, that's what this whole COVID situation has done for a lot of people anyway, kind of without music, hasn't it? You stand back and go, oh yeah, that didn't really matter. But I think now, especially now, as we sort of go back into you know, queuing for Primark and doing things that, you know, kind of we almost thought we wouldn't do again. I think music and art and stuff is going to be super important in actually reminding us that really none of the stuff, the small stuff that we stress all the time, is actually important, and it's just about, you know, being and dancing and singing and all that lovely fluffy hippie stuff, really.
No, it's true. I think it's definitely, I think it's, you know, it's really important that we have that as humans, you know, that kind of connection and that interaction. But let's hear one of your tracks, Guitar Revolution.
Cool.
So we're just going to have a little listen to that right now. So this is the Chris Woods Groove Orchestra and Guitar Revolution. that was Guitar Revolution by the Chris Woods Groove Orchestra. Chris is my guest today on the Tunelectric podcast show. Whizzing back to your sort of earlier career, I noticed that you've obviously you've had some success with your influence on people in the sort of percussive guitar style. You had your percussive guitar sort of instructional book that's been out for quite a while now, and that's sort of seen as the sort of go-to sort of book for learning about the style. Was that something that you always wanted to do as well?
The book came about from playing at NAMM, demoing at NAMM.
Okay.
And just a chap from How Leonard saw me playing, and my wife was speaking to him. I think, getting him to sign the mailing list, actually. And,
okay.
And
cool.
then I think he was like, "Oh, I work for How Leonard," and she's like, "Oh, great. Well, Chris would really love to do a book." And then there you go. So that was an amazing happening. But yeah, I've always been fascinated by teaching and portraying. They call it pedagogy, don't they, in proper terms? But how you sort of portray information and get that across, and especially when it comes to the percussive thing, because I think what's particularly interesting about this is it's a style of guitar that in some ways isn't actually really a style of guitar. It's a sort of there certainly is a genre that's come out of that, although I wouldn't really include myself in that. But this sort of collection of techniques, this way of playing is actually relatively new, and it certainly doesn't fit into a particular sort of learning culture that we've seen before, because actually it's kind of quite, some people would say it's quite internet based, because there's lots of visual learning from YouTube and stuff, which for sure is true. But another way of looking at that is it's been very much about people learning it for themselves and finding their own ways of doing it. I think that's why you see so much variation, which is an amazing thing. So when you're teaching it, you can either go down the approach of this is the way I do it, and this is the way you should do it. And I'm more interested in that. Okay, how do you teach people to do it in a way that describes some basic principles, but doesn't stifle them into doing it in a particular way. So yeah, I was always really interested in that in workshops and stuff, and what certainly wanted to put it into some kind of publication. And kind of did in ways in like guitar mags and stuff, but that to actually put it down into a journey from start to finish was really cool. So
cool. So it's
I'm
just
rambling.
No, it's cool. So, no, I just sort of thought of that, and I guess it's just just giving someone the opportunity to take those techniques that you're using and just adapt them to fit their particular sort of own unique style, or something that they can build their personal sort of style of that style onto, kind of thing.
It's an approach that you can build into any genre really, but I think it's best that there's an element of yourself in it. Because that actually seems to be quite the common theme amongst all percussive players, that everyone actually has quite a unique way of approaching their percussion. But there are some fundamental things that are there, the coordination between right and left hand, for example, and the fitting in between movements. And, there's a lot of similarities, a universality between them, but actually not in the way of this is how you do this. If that makes any sense at all.
Have you sort of have you taken sort of any inspiration from any other musical instruments that you might play, or is it just guitar that you're mainly play, or is there any sort of percussion that you play or anything like that as well? Or
So cajon I play a fair old bit of, and mainly this has probably come from self-teaching a little bit, but also from listening to people in the know, and that equilibrium of movement of right and left. So definitely some drumming and the use of right and left hand comes into that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And you've also you've said you sort of briefly touched on you've written for many sort of magazines and stuff about that sort of style, and also, am I right in saying that you've written some kind of sort of level books for the Registry of Guitar Tutors, or some kind of advice books and things for those as well?
I've got some pieces in the grades.
Okay, yeah.
Some other sort of percussive elements, which was fun to do because it's good to sort of get it into the grading system in that way, because obviously the grading system is kind of an archaic, dusty book, isn't it? And I think it needed at least some freshness in there.
Was that a tricky task to try and think, okay, is this an easy thing? Should this be like a level 1 thing, or this will be like a level, I don't know, 5 thing, or was it just a certain level, or
Definitely, it was really tricky to do, and it was really tricky to do from. I'm actually not a fan of the grading system anyway as a whole. I don't think it's necessarily that constructive to helping people grow to be musicians in a creative way. I think it can kind of stifle that a bit. I think sometimes we use it just because it's there, but then the reality is it is there. So I think the challenge for me and why I wanted to do it was, well, it is there, it is being used. So how do you put something which is super creative and super, like we were just talking about, everyone's got their unique way of doing it. So how do you communicate that? So it was quite a challenge. I think it seems to work well. I think we hit the nail on the head quite nicely. I had some good chats with Merv, the chap at RGT at the time, about it and sort of making it, or LCM as it is right now, and that was quite helpful, I think, in getting that right. And because I think one of the particularly good things about LCM grades anyway is that there is a focus on interpretation. Interpreting chord sequences and stuff over over ABRSM or something, which I think is really important. Really, really important. So they're quite unique in that. So I think it does hopefully fit in quite well.
Yeah, because they do have the sort of in the improvisation parts of their levels and things, and it's up to the player to decide that their own take on a certain thing,
which is really cool, man. Really,
I think that's pretty cool.
Really, really important in the sort of grading world. I think it would be nice to see that appear in all grade systems.
Yeah, definitely. Really. Because that's something that I sort of struggle to get my head around with some of the grading systems. It's very sort of rigid, and it's like, okay, once you know all this, then you're this level, but then take that person away from the books and put them in a group of musicians and say, okay, this is in B flat or whatever, and it's this is the structure, let's just go for it and improvise solos and things. Are they gonna are they going to be able to do that? To me, that's kind of what you should be able to do. But of course, I guess the grades are sort of there to give people structure as well, particularly sort of younger people who may sort of thrive on more sort of structured learning. But I myself, I've never sort of got to the end of. I did one of the grades, the electric guitar grades, and then I was like, oh, okay. So, but then I sort of never sort of did any more. But I've always sort of come from that sort of singer-songwriter, I guess, background, but then also learning the guitar on top of that and wanting to be, good at guitar and stuff. But I'm just sort of thinking ahead a little bit now about your various releases and things, because you've you've had a few EPs and albums out. The last one that you did, can you tell us a little bit about that and the sort of inspiration on that? Because it's got a bit of a weird title, hasn't it? It's is it?
Are you holding off saying it in case you say it wrong?
I do have it here, but it's in Pareidolia.
There you go. That's pretty good. Yeah, in Pareidolia.
In Pareidolia. So I sort of looked that up as well on Google, and it was sort of saying
good.
something that basically you see more than something in like patterns or sort of shapes that you might see. You see something else in, I don't know, inanimate things perhaps or whatever,
Yeah, it's like finding Jesus in your toast. or
that sort of thing. Yeah. Cool.
Cool. Yeah. That's the idea. I think it was a mark. A point in my creating of music, which was very much based around being really creative and seeing things in more sort of textural and abstract ways.
Yeah.
Moving away from just wanting to entertain. I've always definitely wanted the solo guitar pieces to be emotional and emotive, but they've always also had maybe a degree of entertainment in there. And I think this album of work is very much about texture, colour, and just all that wonderful stuff that you can't necessarily articulate, and that people, when they'll listen to it, they'll see their own patterns and shapes. Really, I think it's still entertaining because of that, but that the whole ethos behind it is very much just about making stuff and for people to interpret it how they want, really.
Yeah, I think it's really great. Sort of, it's very sort of cinematic, and it's definitely cool. Could be used for sort of I can see it in films and things. And this next track that we're going to play, Rhythm Museum, it definitely sort of reminds me of. I've been re-watching Breaking Bad for about the 5th time now, and this next track sort of reminds me of it could definitely just fit in there perfect with a sort of video montage of some shady goings on, or So I think it's very sort of cinematic and very like you were saying, very sort of there's a lot of textures to it and a lot of different noises that you're making on the guitar, and the way that you approach the guitar, it's really creative, and it's very inspirational to listen to. So we're going to play the next track now. This is Rhythm Museum by the Chris Woods Groove Orchestra from In Paris. I couldn't get this right. In Pareidolia.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here it is. that was Rhythm Museum by the Chris Woods Groove Orchestra. Thanks again, Chris, for having come and take some time out of your day to chat to me. And we're just chatting a little bit about your sort of inspirations and your previous releases and things. And have you got any plans for the future that you want to do now? Now we're sort of moving out of this weird sort of lockdown phase. Hopefully, is there anything that you have in the sort of pipeline that you're working on or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm working on a project currently with Elixir Strings again, actually, but it's a composition, and it's a guitar orchestra composition, and it's very different, and should be released sort of later this year. And currently I'm recruiting the performers to play it, basically.
Okay.
And writing accordingly to who I'm getting as well, because I tend to sort of, if it's a smaller thing, I will definitely write for the people as well.
I see. Yeah.
So yeah.
Nice one. So you're sort of writing to their strengths or their unique style. You're sort of trying to think,
absolutely,
okay,
man.
what can show off their sort of what they do well, that sort of thing. And
definitely.
Yeah. We were just chatting a little bit about your previous, the last sort of music that you've released, the track that we just heard, and it sounds there's an element of sort of world music to me in there. Is that something that you like to put into your music, or do you just feel that you get certain vibes when you're writing pieces and they might have, I don't know, some kind of geographical center to you, or is it does that make sense?
I think so, man. Yeah, it sounds like it's not just music from the West, if you like. It doesn't sound just like
there's lots
American
of different influences. Yeah, sort of Eastern and Spanish and flamenco and all sorts of things sort of mixed together. So it's
man, definitely. So it does make perfect sense. So I listen to a lot of music from all around the world. As I said, at uni, I particularly fell in love with Indian classical, and still really working with Hakira on tabla has been a real journey in Indian classical music. Work with a Afghan rhubarb player, Ruben Montero. That's been a real journey in sort of more Afghan sort of folk music, and even into sort of more Turkish folk. And then, but I just listened to loads of stuff from all over the world. And love it. I listen to a lot of and here you go, here's me being rubbish at saying names as well. There's Tinarawen. I sound really West Country.
I know of them. Yeah, they're very good.
There you go.
They're very good.
And that I'm obsessed by some of the sounds that they make, even not being able to pronounce their band name very well. So definitely that's all in there. Now the concept of this piece actually though as well. So the title was given to me by a very good friend, Amrit Sond, who's also he's a guitarist and an amazing one at that, a Grammy Award winning one at that as well. Wow. So yeah, cool. It's nice to have at least one cool friend anyway like that. Anyway, not that my other friends aren't cool, but they don't have Grammys. So anyway, he gave me this title on a way to a gig once we were both playing, and he was driving, and he was like, "I've got this name for a song, Rhythm Museum, and I really want you to have it, you to write a piece of music." He's a very generous man, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's so cool! That's such a cool thing." And he was like, "Yeah, I think I love. I mean, I think." Originally he was more like it will be like just all the best grooves put together, it would be like the James Brown groove and then the whatever into a piece, And then it kind of developed, and I was like, well, actually, what about the idea of maybe just, a museum itself, the title itself, a museum itself of groove, if you like, of rhythm coming to life at night, kind of a cinematic idea, if you like. So, yeah, there's definitely that. I'm not trying to like represent in some kind of almost slightly tacky way of, here is the sound of Spain, and here is the sound of it's not that at all. But it's just supposed to sound like a rich melting pot of exciting cultures coming to life, which the guitar basically is.
It definitely does.
Cool,
yeah,
man.
No, it's really cool. And we do have one more song to play from you, and that is Octet. Now, cool. That's quite a recent thing that you've worked on, isn't it? So can you tell us a little bit about that? Is it a big sort of internet kind of collaboration or something that you did?
Yeah, spot on, man. So again, working with Elixir Strings, and I've been talking to Elixir Strings about doing a guitar orchestra project for a while, and then in true sort of pandemic style, it was like, we could now look. This is what everyone's doing. We can actually do this in this amazing way. So it was an exciting opportunity to sort of jump on that bandwagon a little bit, but do it in hopefully in a bit of a fresh way, really. So Elixir gave me the opportunity to choose a handful of their artists, and they have some amazing players who are all really quite unique. And I chose the guys and girls that I did choose because they really sounded unique as well. They've really had their own voice, and set about writing parts very much for them in mind, if you like, to bring out what they did. But again, also using really strong sort of minimalist ideas where it's ridiculously simplistic in parts, just layered and sort of like a mechanism going along. And then they all have 4 bars of improvisation as well that was sort of guided nicely as well, because working remotely in that way is really interesting, because if you say do a solo here but you can't hear anyone else's bits, it can be quite out of context. So I was sort of playing producer, saying I was actually writing guide solos and sending them out, which sounded rubbish because I might not be so good as them
so
at what
something
they do.
Like this kind of thing. But
and then it would come back, but then someone else would come back with something else, and I'd be like, oh my, what they've done has really changed that. So it was a really cool process. I think quite unique within that sort of realm of the sort of online collaborations. But yeah. And it's called Octet, because there's 8, obviously.
Octet. Awesome. We're going to play that right now. Here's Octet by the Chris Woods Groove Orchestra. That was Octet by the Chris Woods Groove Orchestra. Chris is my guest today on the Tunelectric podcast show. This is episode number 2. And before we go, Chris, I do have a quick fire round if you're up for it. So it's 10 quick questions just to get to know a little bit more about you. Just going to see what we've got this week. Okay. Are you ready?
Totally.
Ready, Chris? Cool. Awesome. Right. Number 1. Your most memorable gig that you've played?
That was definitely playing at NUM, I can't even remember what they call it, something breakfast, but it's massive and it's in the Hilton and it's huge. And that was in 2019, I think. That was,
wow.
Amazing.
Awesome. That sounds cool. Then number 2, a style of guitar playing that you'd like to get better at?
Slide, I'd say.
Cool. Nice one. I like a bit of slide too. So, number 3 is a country that you'd most like to visit.
I just haven't thought about going to a country for so long.
I know. It's a bit of a weird question, isn't it, right now? But okay, maybe the first country that you'd like to go to as soon as you're able. What would that be?
As soon as I'm able. Oh man, I'm finding that. I think I'd really like to go to Vietnam. Actually, I always see Vietnam, and I'm like, well, that looks very beautiful and amazing. We're gonna go with that.
Cool. Okay. Number 4. Can you give us one good guitar practice tip for efficient practice?
Okay. Yeah. Definitely. I think not constantly practicing on the edge of your ability. Make sure you practice where you're very, very comfortable, because that's where you can perfect things. You can't perfect things if you're always challenged and stressed, basically.
Yeah. That's interesting, because some people say, always be pushing it. If you're not pushing yourself, you're not learning, and you're not, but you do have to enjoy what you're doing as well.
just chill out, man.
Exactly.
It'll come eventually.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Nice one. So number 5 is you meet your younger self. You're allowed to say 3 words. What would they be?
Oh my God!
I'm putting you on the spot. I know.
yeah. 3 words. Yeah, probably would. Take it easy, I guess.
That sounds good. Number 6, a guitarist that you'd most like to jam with.
Oh. I'm gonna say Bill Frisell or Frizzell. See, I don't know how to say the names of my favourite artists, but yeah.
What style does Bill Frisell play again?
He's like, he gets put into the jazz genre.
Jazz
but
guy.
but it's really it's not jazz, man. It's just like this lovely, twangy, ambient, spacious wonderfulness. Bill Frisell, look him up. I'd say he'd be pretty cool for a jam.
Nice, I bet. Cool, awesome. Number 7, your preferred biscuit for tea dunking.
I think that would change quite a lot, but I'm going to go out on a whim and say Gary Baldy, actually.
Oh wow, nice. The Waitrose ones are the best. They're my favourite. Gary Baldy's.
That's
not endorsing Waitrose or anything, but they are.
You crack on, mate. I can't afford to shop at Waitrose, but
it's once a month. I treat myself to a packet of biscuits.
Okay.
Anyway, number 8. We're nearly done, so don't worry. This is a bit of a weird one. A toddler has been left alone for a minute in your music room. What is the first piece of kit that you would check that is still in one piece to make sure?
Oh man,
one piece?
Well, this happens to me with my little one, and he's made his way into the music room, and then there's that and I don't. Yeah, I guess the guitar that I play most, which is this Martin XXX1, which is ironically one of the cheapest instruments in my collection, but it's the probably the most precious to me.
The ones the one that sort of the most songs sort of fall out of that one, I guess.
yeah, exactly. So many memories.
Nice.
But I don't mind. It's all cool.
Yeah. Cool. All right, two left. A band or artist that you can't get enough of right now. Who do you really dig?
I really, and this might be surprising because of the music that I write, but I really like Idols, if you've ever heard.
Okay, yeah, I know of them. Yeah, that's the sort of the punky sort of duo.
Basically, yeah. It's just really powerful, aggressive, but beautiful music. Excellent guitaring as well. Really creative.
Awesome. Number 10, the last one. If your life had taken a different turn, what job would you be doing now?
Oh, I reckon maybe like gardening or something,
Nice and relaxing.
Yeah.
Chilled out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Chris, that's the end of the quickfire round. That was 10 quick questions just to round off the episode today. So could you just tell us where we can keep up with you online, Chris?
Absolutely. Thanks so much. So if you want to hear or see what I do, then have a look for the Chris Woods Groove Orchestra. Website's chriswoodsgroove.co.uk, but just looking up the Chris Woods Groove Orchestra will point you in the right direction.
Thanks everyone for listening to the podcast today. I hope you've really enjoyed it. For more, check out the show notes over at tunelectric.com/podcast. This is where you'll also find the video, transcription links, and more. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and spread the word. We've got some great guests and topics lined up for you in the coming weeks, so please come back and have another listen. Cheers everyone.